Welcome to the Wealth Setting Podcast Video Edition. I'm your host, John Pugliano. I'm also the founder and money manager at investablewealth.com. In this episode, I want to review with you the method that I use to determine a buy point by using a moving average. Before I get started, I do want to point out that I don't just use charts or technical analysis to determine what stocks I buy and what buy-in points I decide to use. I use at least three methods, and these three methods are fundamentals. That's basically evaluating a stock by its valuation. I also use trends. An example of a trend might be a demographic or a social event, like the recent presidential election. You're going to hear me talk about that in this episode. And then finally, I do rely heavily on technical analysis, which is the chart patterns that we're going to talk about today. In a previous episode, I explained to you how you can use Yahoo Finance to draw your own simple moving averages. So I'm not going to explain that in this episode. You can go back and reference that one. But I will be using Yahoo Finance so that you can follow along at home. So right now I'm showing you the ETF EWW. That's an ETF that focuses on the Mexican stock market, the Mexican economy. And I want to show you through this episode when I decided to buy it and what some of my rationale were based around simple moving averages. Now, right now we're looking at the Mexican ETF over a 10-year period, and you can see that red line is the 3-year simple moving average, and you can see how that worked very well, and you got support when that ETF was moving in an uptrend. The importance of that 3-year moving average is even more evident where I've drawn it out in this slide, where you can see how during the financial crisis in 2008, when EWW broke hard below that 100-day moving average, it dropped like a rock. It bottomed out in March of 2009, and in particular, once it got above that long-term 3-year moving average, that average acted as support, and basically EWW went straight up for about a 4 or 5 year time period. It wasn't until late in 2014 that EWW broke hard below its 3-year moving average, and then you can see over the past couple years it's been in a long-term downtrend. And so the million-dollar question is, was the November 2016 election of President Trump the bottom point for EWW, or will it continue to slide? To see what an impact the Trump election had on the Mexican stock market, let's drill down to a 6-month chart, and now in red I've drawn in a 10-day moving average. You can see how early on before the election the 10-day average was moving up and it was acting as support for the price, but once Trump got elected, again, it dropped like a rock. The bottom fell out of it. And so the question is, will the price continue to move lower or have things stabilized? Now, you can see that on our 6-month chart with that 10-day moving average, this yellow area that I've shaded in, you can see over a period of about 2.5 months, 2 months or so following the election, there does seem to be a period where the price has stabilized and that price has solidly broken out and moved above the 10-day moving average. And so when we were in the middle of that stabilization area back at the end of the year on December 30th, I decided to buy into this Mexican ETF. And you can see where I've marked it there. I bought in at the end of the year, and it was right as I was anticipating that the price would bounce off of the 10-day moving average. You can see that it didn't do that. The price actually broke through that 10-day moving average. It didn't get support there, and for the next few days or a week or so, it continued to fall further. But then it did turn around. The price broke out hard above the 10-day moving average, and then you can see as we moved into late January and into February, the 10-day average started to act as support for the price. Now, to further confirm that the uptrend was in place, let's draw in a 100-day moving average. That's the line in green. And you can see that not only is the 10-day moving average pointed up, but the 100-day moving average is beginning to stabilize. And you can also see where just in the past few weeks, the 10-day moving average, the red line, is crossed out and broken out above the 100-day moving average. And then finally, you can see when the price pulled back in late February, the 100-day moving average, instead of acting as resistance as it had in the past, it's now acting as support. And so from a technical analysis standpoint, it looks like the uptrend in the Mexican economy, the Mexican stock market, is moving forward over the past 2 months. You can see how that price action, although it's choppy, it is moving from the left, lower left, to the upper right. I think that it looks like the rally is intact. And although there are other considerations that we have to look at, such as the fundamentals and the trends as to what kind of impacts a border tax or other issues may bring up, the chart, at least at this point, looks solid. I'll be watching to see if it can hold above those moving averages. And you can see from the buy point back at the end of the year until the beginning of March, that ETF is up almost 10%. So for now, I'll be holding this ETF. The next million-dollar question is, what will my exit strategy be, or when will I decide to sell? Well, at this point, I don't know. I'm watching to see how well the chart holds up. You can see here, using a 5-year chart, I've drawn in horizontal blue lines to indicate the next levels of resistance. And you can see how they move up sort of in an exponential pattern. And at each level, the price will be harder and harder to overcome and to break through resistance at those peaks. So I'll be watching those horizontal lines in conjunction with the moving averages to see what kind of price and volume action we get from this ETF. And so if you'll join me on future episodes, we'll see how this all plays out. Until then, as always, this is John Pugliano wishing you the very best returns.